Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're cutting straight to the core of blockchain technology,
Right.
moving beyond the buzzwords, really, to understand its genuine impact for business leaders like you listening.
Yeah.
Our aim is to unpack how this, foundational innovation is set to fundamentally reshape industries.
And it's pretty remarkable when you look at the projected growth, isn't it?
It is.
The global blockchain market is forecast to explode, really explode, to nearly $249 billion by 2029.
Wow.
That's a massive 65.5% compound annual growth rate. We're talking from about $20 billion in 2024.
So not just a small step up.
No, this isn't gradual. It's like a seismic shift. It demands attention from, every business leader, really.
Absolutely. And while its origins, we often trace them back to Bitcoin, right, 2008, its journey since then has been transformative. You had Ethereum come along, and these things called smart contracts.
For sure.
Basically self-executing agreements written in code right on the blockchain. That really expanded its potential.
It did. Moved it way beyond just digital currency.
Into areas like healthcare, supply chain management, even how governance works.
And if we look globally, it's an interesting picture.
How so?
Well, North America was definitely an early adopter, but now the Asia-Pacific region,
Right.
think China, Japan, India,
Okay.
they're aggressively championing blockchain.
Right.
Really pushing it for the transparency and efficiency gains it offers.
So they're becoming a major force.
A rapidly growing force,
Yeah.
positioning themselves strategically.
So the mission for our deep dive today is pretty straightforward then. We want to filter out the hype, extract the really critical insights about blockchain's potential. What are the essentials for a business-savvy listener like you?
Okay, so let's start by looking beyond just crypto. That was the start, but the real horizon now. It's this ever-widening array of applications across so many sectors.
Like what specifically?
Think about decentralized finance,
Yeah.
DeFi,
Our DeFi.
which is essentially trying to rebuild traditional finance lending, borrowing, but, decentralized, often using those smart contracts we mentioned.
Right.
Then there's its power to totally revolutionize supply chain management, giving you visibility, traceability, levels we haven't really seen before.
And healthcare too, you said.
And healthcare, absolutely. Secure data management, helping different systems actually talk to each other, that kind of thing.
This is where it gets really compelling for me. We're also seeing these key trends making blockchain, more robust, more practical.
Exactly. Like developing more scalable ways to validate transactions and more energy efficient ways, too.
Like proof of stake, tackling those energy concerns.
Precisely. Proof of stake, where you pledge existing crypto to verify things, it uses much less energy than the older methods. That directly addresses some of those early criticisms.
Good point.
And then there's the convergence. Blockchain meshing with other tech like AI and the Internet of Things.
Right, IoT?
That combination, wow, it unlocks even more powerful possibilities. We're talking enhanced transparency across the board, much more automation, and real jumps in operational efficiency.
Okay, let's dig a bit deeper there. How exactly does blockchain change the fundamental way businesses operate? It's not just tech for tech's sake, right?
Not at all. At its heart, blockchain transforms businesses by boosting security, creating much more transparency, and making transactions way more efficient.
Got an example?
Yeah, consider this. Accenture did an analysis. They suggest banks globally could save somewhere in the range of $8 to $12 billion annually by 2030.
Annually? Wow.
Just by using blockchain for cross-border payments.
How does that work?
Well, it largely cuts out layers of intermediary banks and all the fees and delays that come with them.
Okay, so it streamlines things.
Hugely. For a business doing international trade, think faster payments, less capital tied up waiting for things to clear. It's transformational, not just marginal improvement.
That is a staggering figure. Yeah. So businesses get secure, auditable transactions, which means less fraud, lower costs.
Exactly. Less fraud, lower operating expenses, plus, like you mentioned, it opens doors for totally new business models.
Like those dApps. Decentralized applications.
Precisely. Applications running on a decentralized network, not controlled by one single company. More autonomy, more transparency for users.
So simplifying international payments, cutting out middlemen, speeding things up. Huge implications for global commerce.
Profound implications, yeah. It cuts through complexity and friction in ways the old systems just can't.
And thinking about those old systems, fraud risk, data tampering, Those are constant worries. How does blockchain help there?
Well, the architecture itself is the key. It's an immutable distributed ledger,
Being.
meaning once a transaction is validated and added, changing it is, well, practically impossible without network consensus. It becomes permanent, tamper-proof.
So built-in defense against fraud. High data integrity.
That's the core idea, yes.
And what about those high transaction costs we often see?
Blockchain, by its nature, allows for disintermediation. You remove those third-party validators.
Fewer middlemen, lower fees.
Exactly. That streamlining directly cuts costs. Lower costs plus more speed, that's a big advantage.
And data security. Always a huge concern.
Blockchain uses strong cryptography, makes data highly resistant to breaches, unauthorized access, and because it's decentralized.
No single point of failure to attack.
Right. Adds another security layer.
I can really see the value for complex supply chains.
Yeah.
That transparency aspect must be huge.
Oh, absolutely. Blockchain gives you this end-to-end view, right across the whole chain.
So better tracking of goods.
Better tracking, yes, from origin to consumer. It helps fight counterfeiting, too, because you have this auditable trail of authenticity.
Which builds trust.
Builds huge trust among everyone in the network. And think about recalls. If something goes wrong,
You can trace it back quickly.
instantly trace affected products to the source, minimizes the impact, the cost. It's incredibly efficient.
It's fascinating how it's moving beyond just finance. We're hearing about it in, workforce management now.
Indeed. That's a growing area. Using blockchain for things like securing payroll systems, making payment records transparent, auditable, or for verifying employee credentials, qualifications, work history. Creates a much more trustworthy, efficient system.
You also mentioned DAOs earlier, decentralized autonomous organizations. That sounds potentially radical.
It does raise some fundamental questions, doesn't it, about how organizations might work in the future.
So what are they exactly?
DAOs use blockchain to essentially write the rules and governance of an organization into the code on the blockchain.
Meaning?
Stakeholders, maybe even employees, can participate more directly in decisions. No central command, necessarily.
Leading to more transparency.
Efficiency.
Potentially, yes. Heightened transparency, maybe greater efficiency in governance, and possibly more resilient structures because they aren't reliant on one central point of control. Okay, so for a business leader listening thinking, this sounds promising, but how do we actually start? What are the practical steps for integrating blockchain?
Right. It's not just flipping a switch. The journey usually starts with identifying specific areas where blockchain could really help.
A strategic assessment first.
Exactly. Look at your pain points, your opportunities. Then, the crucial step, picking the right blockchain platform for those needs.
Not a one-size-fits-all thing.
Definitely not. And you have to make sure it works with your existing IT systems. That compatibility piece is huge.
Okay.
Then developing smart contracts to automate things, starting with small pilot projects.
Test the waters first?
Test, refine, learn before you go big. And then continuous monitoring, always evaluating, always optimizing.
We're zoom in now on some specific sectors. We have some data points. Supply chain management seems like a prime candidate.
Oh, absolutely. And the projected growth here is, it stands out. Forecasted to surge from about $4.84 billion in 2024 to over $6.3 billion by 2029. That's nearly a 50% compound annual growth rate.
Wow, almost 50% CAGR. What's driving that massive expansion?
Yeah, several things. There's a growing demand for more transparency. Consumers and businesses want to know where goods come from.
Right, provenance.
Need for better inventory management, reducing waste, cutting costs, meeting compliance regulations more easily, and of course, fighting counterfeits.
Still a huge problem.
Huge. Plus, blockchain is helping with more secure financing options within the supply chain itself.
Okay. Healthcare is another sector with a lot of buzz.
Indeed. And the figures there are, frankly, even more compelling.
Really?
Yeah, the market's valued around $7.87 billion in 2024, projected to hit nearly $53 billion by 2029.
$53 billion. That's a CAGR of over 76%.
Over 76%, astonishing growth.
What are the main drivers in healthcare? What's it being used for?
Primarily, it revolves around securely managing and sharing sensitive patient data. Think about getting records between different doctors or hospitals smoothly.
Interoperability, right? Making systems talk to each other.
Exactly. Improving that interoperability is key. Plus, expanding things like telemedicine, remote patient monitoring, while keeping that data secure and private.
We touched on finance earlier, the bank savings.
Yeah.
But looking more broadly across finance.
Yeah, what's really interesting there is the rapid evolution of DeFi, decentralized finance, creating a more open, accessible financial system using blockchain.
So beyond just banks using it internally.
Way beyond. We're seeing the rise of decentralized exchanges, DXs, for trading crypto peer-to-peer.
Yeah.
The tokenization of assets representing real-world things like property or art as tokens on a blockchain.
Right.
And even central bank digital currencies, CBDCs, digital versions of national currencies.
But that must bring challenges too. Regulation, identity.
Oh, absolutely. Huge regulatory considerations and a massive need for solid identity verification. It's a fast-moving space.
That's not just the private sector either, is it? Governments are looking at this too.
That's correct. Growing interest, lots of experimentation with blockchain for public services.
Like what?
Things like aiming for more transparent, maybe tamper-proof voting systems, improving tax collection efficiency, enhancing regulatory compliance generally.
As this gets more integrated, though, there must be legal hurdles, regulatory stuff businesses need to watch.
Definitely. This brings up big questions like, are smart contracts legally binding everywhere? How do you protect intellectual property in these decentralized systems?
Good one.
In dealing with different privacy laws across the globe, GDPR, CCPA, it gets complex.
And speaking of privacy and security, always top concerns.
Blockchain offers some neat solutions here. Things like zero-knowledge proofs.
Zero knowledge what?
Proofs. It's a way to prove something is true without revealing the underlying information itself. Very clever cryptography.
Okay.
Then you have the difference between permission blockchains restricted access versus permissionless ones like Bitcoin where anyone can join. Different models for different needs.
Balancing transparency and control.
Exactly. And of course, constant work on making smart contracts themselves more secure against bugs or attacks.
What about the bigger picture, the wider economic impacts, beyond just one company's benefits?
Well, if you zoom out, widespread blockchain adoption could lead to major cost cuts across industries, big gains in efficiency through automation, fewer errors,
And new revenue streams.
and unlock totally new revenue streams, yeah. New business models we haven't even thought of yet. Plus, potentially transforming global trade, making it simpler, more trust-based,
Financial inclusion, too.
promoting financial inclusion, giving more people access to financial services, and maybe even helping with environmental sustainability as the tech gets greener.
Looking ahead, what are the emerging trends? What should we keep an eye on?
Well, NFTs, non-fungible tokens, are still evolving, finding uses beyond digital art,
Right.
deeper integration with the Internet of Things, IoT, for secure data exchange between all those connected devices.
Makes sense.
And a really growing emphasis on sustainable blockchain, making the technology itself more energy efficient, addressing those environmental concerns head on.
It's always helpful to see real-world examples. Which companies are really doing this stuff, putting it into practice?
We're seeing big moves from major players, tech companies like IBM, Microsoft. They're offering enterprise platforms to help other businesses build blockchain solutions.
Okay.
Retailers like Walmart are using it heavily in their supply chains for traceability.
We talked about that, yeah.
And financial players like Visa are actively exploring and implementing it for payments.
So it's crossing sectors. And it's not just companies, right? Some governments are ahead of the curve.
Absolutely. Countries like Estonia, Singapore, they're often cited as leaders, using blockchain for public services, digital ID, secure registries, really innovative stuff.
Now, for our listener who might be feeling a bit maybe overwhelmed by all this, what are the main challenges businesses face when they try to adopt blockchain?
Yeah, that's a critical point. It's not always smooth sailing.
What are the hurdles?
One of the big ones is a skill shortage. There just aren't enough people yet with the deep expertise needed to develop and deploy the stuff effectively.
Finding the talent.
Finding the talent, yeah. And then there's the integration challenge, trying to connect these new blockchain systems with existing, often older, IT infrastructure. That can be really complex and costly.
So it really highlights why strategic understanding at the top is so important to navigate those challenges.
Precisely. You need more than just tech know-how. You need clear strategic vision from leadership and a real commitment to investing in the people and the system upgrades required.
So as we start to wrap up here, it seems pretty clear blockchain is much more than just, a passing trend.
Oh, definitely.
It's really solidifying its place as a foundational technology with huge implications across so many industries.
What's really compelling, I think, is its potential to fundamentally change how we do business, how we handle digital data, how we establish trust online. It's something any organization serious about the future needs to be thinking about strategically.
And that brings us right to the crucial so what for you, our listener. How does all this connect back to your work? What decisions might you need to think about given how fast this is moving?
Yeah, this leads to a really fundamental question for you to mull over.
Yeah.
With this accelerating innovation, this expanding scope, what new business models, what new efficiencies might blockchain unlock in your specific field? Things maybe people aren't widely considering yet.
Good question.
And maybe even more importantly, what long-held assumptions in your industry might need a second look, might need to be challenged as this technology keeps maturing.
That's a powerful thought to leave you with. Understanding blockchain, harnessing it strategically, it really could be critical for future success in this, well, increasingly digital world. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.